house at 6 in the morning to be picked up by a gang of his mates in a lorry, and then he'd be out digging all day. I was aware that my dad's job was very physical, but he seemed to like to be out working. When he got home, he'd be covered in black dirt from head to foot, and when he was getting cleaned up, my mother would leave to get the bus to go to her job as a cleaner at the Royal Infirmary. She was always really busy. Living in Ardwick meant inner-city housing and the remnants of the post-industrial revolution. It was a mixture of streets and factories. Railway tracks ran over the arches across the road from us, and we'd see the trains going in and out of town. In between the railway tracks and our street was an area of derelict land called the Croft. It had been a bomb site, and it was where the gypsy families sometimes settled in their caravans. I'd see the gypsy kids on the Croft and think it must be great to be living like that. They were wild and didn't have to go to school. They were let loose to do what they wanted. It looked lawless and dangerous living on the Croft, and one day I worked up the courage to sneak over to talk to them. There was a small bonfire going and a few adults hanging around, and when I asked where they'd come from, it was strange to discover that there were people who didn't really belong anywhere. At night they'd be having parties and playing music really loudly on the radios in their caravans with the trains going by. Around the corner from us was a little park called Ardwick Green, which gave the area its name. My mother would take Claire and me to play on the swings and roundabouts there on our way back from town. I loved it as it was the only green place around, and we went there a lot, but it was also a skinhead hangout, and they were usually on the lookout for people who they could beat up. Sometimes there would be drunks and down-and-outs lying around, and at other times teenagers would be wandering about, usually scruffy and with very long hair, and seemingly very confused. Later I would discover they were hippies, but at the time I just thought they were down on their luck. 2 streets away was the Manchester Apollo, which was a big 1930s Art Deco theatre that had become an ABC cinema. On some Saturday mornings I'd go with Claire to watch the grainy old black and white sci-fi and cowboy films, and every time I'd get a new badge with ABC Miners on it. Once in a while there would be a flash car parked outside the front, and a crowd of people would be gathered around to catch a glimpse of whichever British actor or TV personality was there, making a glamorous appearance on the pavement. The biggest attraction in Manchester in the 1960s, though, was Bellevue Fun Park, a couple of miles up the road. It was billed as the showground of the world and boasted a circus, which I thought was amazing, and a zoo, which was really grim, and the famous King's Hall where all the big 1960s pop acts like Manfred Mann, the Kinks, and the Animals played. Nearly all of my time as a child was spent with my extended family from Kildare. My dad's family of 5 and my mum's family of 14 meant that there were a lot of aunts and uncles and an ever-growing number of cousins. I was often at my grand's or at one of my relatives' houses, and as more babies arrived, everyone relied on each other for support and help with looking after the kids. Sometimes I would be enlisted to keep an eye on the younger ones, even though I was only a little kid myself. My Aunt Josie and my Uncle Patsy Murphy lived in the next street from us with my cousin Pat, who was 5 years older than me. Pat had come over from Ireland and liked messing around with bikes. I would bring my toy guitar to their house and he would show me whatever new tunes he had worked out on his harmonica. 2 doors up from them were my Uncle Christy and my Aunt Kathleen, with their 3 young boys, Chris, John and Brian. 1 mile over the other side of the railway track was where my Aunt May lived with her husband Dinny and my cousins Dennis, Anne, Mark, Geraldine and Jane, and a few doors down from her was my dad's youngest sister Anne, with her husband Martin and my youngest cousin Siobhan. 2 of my mother's sisters lived a few miles away in Chorlton, and we get on the bus to visit them. Aunt Kathleen, Uncle Timmy and cousins Michael, Paul, Joseph and Tim, and Aunt Tess and Uncle Christy Brennan and cousins Jerry, Tony, Martin, Mary and Shane. Having so many relatives gave us all our own community and a shared sense of background and history that made us seem like a tribe. One morning I was in our back room, sitting on the floor and messing around with some toys when my mum dashed in with my Aunt May. There was a Dansette record player on a cupboard and I watched them hovering over it excitedly as my mum put on a 45 RPM record with a red label. The record dropped onto the turntable and I heard a simple guitar figure as Walk Right Back by the Everly Brothers started to play. I watched the 2 women closely while they shared the song, and I saw my mother as a music fan. I loved the sheer joy they took in playing the record. When it was finished, they pressed the switch again and the song started over. They continued playing it, pointing out bits and singing along until I knew all of the song myself. I'd never seen anyone playing the same record over and over again, and I'd never seen anyone identifying bits of the music as it played. It was an infectious pop song with a cheerful sound and great voices, but the best thing to me about the Everly Brothers record was the loud guitar.